Welcome back once again to the You Should Get a License podcast edition, your number one source for information, education, and inspiration on the most underrated career opportunity in business today. That is a career in the insurance industry and financial services. This is Rod Powell, and today is going to be dope. It's going to be a dope day.
Yeah.
Because we have on the line one of the premier and most not only versatile, but one of the most astute professionals, in employee benefits. Someone who, I look at and say, hey, look, that's somebody who I want to be like one day, who is really, just holding the flag high, not only for the industry, but also for the community and for our people. And I want to bring him on, the president of Great Lakes Benefits, Mr. Kareim. Cade. Kareim, how you doing, brother?
Man, I am fantastic. Now I'm looking for your address right in here because I got my checkbook. So all that good stuff you just said, man, I'm gonna put a check in the mail for you, man. You know what I mean? Word. My mama would be proud. Mama, look at me now. Look at that. Yes. It's a pleasure to be here, brother. It is a pleasure, indeed, a pleasure to be here. Excited to share with your viewership today. I think we're gonna have a great conversation, right?
Oftentimes, when I'm speaking to somebody, I might be talking to them for the first time, on the platform. But we got history, we got a real friendship, we have a real connection. So this is going to be a fun conversation. I'm excited about it. Before we hop in, on this platform, we look to inspire people to join our industry. We look to motivate people who maybe are new to the business to stay in the business. And we look to share insights to those who have been in the business into maybe some new thought processes or even ideas that they haven't had, because there's so many different market segments. There's so many different lanes. And I remember when we met and we found out that we were actually both in employee benefits, it was like, oh, snap, because you don't see many, who are in that space. And I mentioned employee benefits in the introduction, but if you could actually just share, with our listeners and the audience, what you do on a day-to-day basis, what Great Lakes Benefits is, and how you do business in this insurance marketplace.
And I was going to say, and two bald head brothers. I mean, I'm high.
Two bald head brothers.
Two bald head, light skinned brothers. Here we go, man. We ready to go. We always I have people that always tease me and say, anytime we look at any revolution that was taken on, it was some light-skinned brother taking it on and pushing the agenda in this deal. And he didn't even have a reason to have to do that deal. So you and I today had to go after it. So, man, again, I thank you for the opportunity to be able to share, man, and really kind of look at our story, and what we do on a day-to-day basis. I think in order to go forward, I need to take you back to just kind of share how we got here and what it looks like, because you and I talked a lot about voluntary benefits. That's where I started in this space, was in voluntary benefits. So we didn't just jump into employee benefits. We kind of morphed into that over years. And so my first maybe 10 years, maybe 8 years in the business was strictly focused on voluntary benefits. And I did that very well. Was with Colonial Life at that time and had a great run there. And I think that what changed for me and how Great Lakes Benefit Group was born was that at some point I began to call on brokers. And at that time, when I was involved heavily with the voluntary benefits segments, voluntary benefit specialists were the scum of the earth, bro. We were bottom feeders, man. People looked at us and said, these big brokers were like, they thumb their nose at that business. And I would always say, you know what? It's not pretty, it's profitable. I mean, it was just a great business model. And so I would call on these brokers, and really start realizing that I got into a lot of the businesses that we had benefits in without ever having gone to talk to a broker. And so I went in direct, and I went in with my story, and we were talking about benefits communication. And why is all that important to how we got there? Well, I got tired of calling on brokers. And one day I just simply said, forget calling on the brokers. I'm going to be a broker. Like I knew enough about the brokers. I knew enough about the brokerage space. And I had a client that came to me and said, Kareim, this is all great. You're going to do these voluntary benefits, but here's what we're going to do. You are going to figure out how to run all of our benefit portfolio. And we're going to sign these letters, which I had never heard of an agent or record letter. I didn't know anything about that. Anything I had was brand new, fresh, a new master application. That was the deal. He said, but what's going to happen is that you're going to have to figure this out and figure out how to manage our benefits. This was in 1999. So I'm dating myself. This is how far it goes back, right? And so I looked at that deal and I'm kind of like, man, all right, I'm gonna figure this out. And I found a mentor that really kind of shared with me what the healthcare space would look like. And I quickly realized that there was nobody who looked like me. I had not come across them. I didn't see them. I didn't see any African-American brokers in this spot. And what one of my mentors said to me was like, it's great that you've gone after all the individual business. And this is not a knock on anybody who's in that space. But he said, what if you understood that every month an employer is going to pay his or her healthcare expenses for their employees because they don't want their employees to show up and not have that. So where there may be one person who things got tight that month and they didn't decide to pay their insurance premium and you got a lapse notice or you got something else that you got a charge back, you got anything along those lines. Here's the business that I can tell you that these employers are not going to miss. Now they might miss one, they won't miss two because they're never going to be in a position to which their employees cannot go in and flash that card and it works. And that burnt, man, that I caught that ride and I was like, oh, okay, this is a volume play now. I was fishing with a pole. Now I'm fishing with a net. And now I'm only dealing with one person as opposed to the kitchen table business that I had been doing or the worksite marketing business that I've been doing. And I had to do volume in a different way, one by one. I could now grab 50 people at one time, know that they were going to pay the bill and be done. And so when you talk about what we do, we are a full-fledged healthcare consultancy. And so we have two sides to our business. One is fee-based, where we're doing strictly consulting work. And when we say consulting work, we're doing consulting work with self-funded individuals. We're dealing with folks that are looking at being very creative in the space. And so I have two sets of clients. I have clients that are very forward-thinking, and they're looking at not this year's renewal, but the next 5-year renewals. And we're helping them to plan for that. And so we like to think that we're part of their strategic planning team. As much as they're planning strategically on everything else on how to grow their business, if they're not planning with us in mind, based upon how many people they're going to add, based upon how many different locations they're going to go into, you've got to be considering healthcare at that same time. And so we figured out that niche and begin to fill that niche in that space of just helping them to plan strategically on what that looks like. And typically with the folks that we find in that space are going to be your larger houses. You're going to get your YSGAL, you're going to get your Aon, you're going to get your Gallagher, you're going to get all these larger houses that most people depend upon to do that. And so we found that to be very boutique for us. And then the other side of that was actual products, right? We could come and actually design what a product portfolio would look like. And so when I think about day-to-day for us is less of the transactional. So we didn't want to be in a transactional space. And I know a lot of people that in our business is spreadsheet driven. You know, they come in with the same thing. They're going to shop between 7 carriers. And we realized early on that did not contain cost. And so for us to actually contain cost, we had to get up under the hood and we really had to start picking apart the insurance carriers to say, oh, this is where you make your money at. And if we were able to get people to be educated on how they could control more of those dollars themselves, they could become the insurance carrier and not have to go to one, right? And so that's really our modeling. We try to take something that's very complex and make it simple because most people won't do it. Even the larger houses won't do it. And when you look at it, this is a message, right? This is an alert here. Most of the times they won't do it because they're confined to where they get their bonuses from. And we never want to be in a space to say that we're going to place all our business with Blue Cross because they're going to give us a 7-figure check. Now, somebody may say that that's crazy as hell that you wouldn't take that, Kareim. And I'm saying, okay, I get that. Sure, we could grow faster. However, what we understand is that we made our clients a promise. And our clients' promise was the promise we made to them is that we were going to do everything in our power to help contain costs while not losing any of the things that they have. But we really were going to be in a space of mitigating risk. And in doing that, I can't be locked into one carrier to do that because I know at that point, I'm simply placing that business in that space because of what the bonuses are going to look like on the back end. And so we challenge people in that space. We challenge people to think outside of that because we've been conditioned as employees, as in employers, that if we've got one of the carriers or another, that we're in good shape. And so our goal is to demystify what it looks like in the employee benefits space and help people get a handle on the second largest spend they have beside their salaries, bro. And it's just interesting to me that as we talk about it, that the people spend more time on planning for pencils and toilet paper and all the stuff that don't even come close to moving the needle that we manage. And we're getting them to understand that when you get a handle on your healthcare, it is the bank account that will allow you to do other things in your business if you can control this spend here.
Man, that is look, that was all right. That's the end of the interview. Thank you very much. No, look. No, that knowledge that you just shared, one, you're gonna get some people in trouble. Just FYI.
Oh, for sure. Oh, absolutely. That's my goal.
Right. So, somebody's gonna have questions after hearing that.
Yes, always.
Are you telling me? Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Right. Let's kind of go back and dissect that a little bit. Just in employee benefits in general. So let's break down what is the difference between, and you talked a little bit about the volume portion of it, but
yes,
what are some of the differences between just employee benefits versus just consumer individual market insurance?
Well, so I think you're planning for an entire demographic. And so it's different than the individual. With the individual coverage, we can laser in on what is important to Rod. Will Rod is a father, he's a husband, he's got 2 kids, he's got a dog, so I can plan that specific to you. When I take a group of individuals and I bring them in, and let's suppose it's a group of 50, I've got all kinds of demographics. So I've got Rod that has a family. I've got Kareim, whose kid is 21 in college, and yeah, I might be carrying her, but I'm not married. So I've got a different set of circumstances, right? Then we've got another person that is 23 years old, fresh out of college. And so his or her needs are different. And so when we come together to plan for an entire organization, there's different things that go into that because we've got different demographics. And so we're trying to solve for how do we meet the needs of everybody here to the best of our ability. And that's different than being in an individual space because I can talk to Rod and figure out specifically what's important to Rod, what's important to his family. I can ask those questions. Now I'm talking to an employer and say, tell me about the makeup of your organization. What does that look like? How many males? How many females? What age difference? What ethnicities should we be considering? I got a lot of other things to consider before making that plan. And it's not just coming in and slapping down a plan, which is typically what happens in my industry. I'm going to tell you that in this space that I'm in, I'm going to go on a limb and say 90% of people are spreadsheets. That's what they do. They're going to get a spreadsheet. You're going to give them a census. That census is going to have the employee demographic information. They're going to send it over to a carrier. They'll spit out some things and they're going to come back and sit in front of you with 5 pieces and say, which one do you want? I mean, that's benefit planning for them. And so we saw that and realized that, wait a minute, when we really think about this and we think about healthcare, we need to really be looking at healthcare in terms of unit costs, because in every other thing that we buy, we look at unit costs. Hell, if we go to Costco and we look at the bunch, they're going to give us a unit cost on the bunch versus us going out and buying an individual. Everything else we do is unit costs. And so healthcare is the one space, kind of this last frontier where everything is hidden and nothing is available, right? We're trying to make it available. We're trying to get you to see some things differently, but it just doesn't happen. And so we started talking to folks about healthcare supply. So that supply chain is a whole different messaging than simply coming down in a spreadsheet, talking to an individual. So when we start talking about employee benefits as a whole, well, does it make sense for us to have a low deductible? Do we realize that 82% of the people in America never hit a deductible, but because we've been sold on having first dollar coverage, that's the first thing that we talk about. And so people are going to sell that. And it's just like in car insurance. Hell, if the deductible is lower, then guess what's higher? The premium. The premium is higher. And so we've got to do a lot of education in that space to help folks understand that there's a different way to go about doing it. And if we look at going about it doing differently, and it's not transaction based only, I can tell you most organizations see their broker at the time of open renewal. I mean, that's open enrollment is going to start. Renewal period is around. Hey, Rod, how you doing, man? Let me come over here and show you what's happening. Oh, you got a 20% increase. Oh, let me call the carrier back. Oh, now we got it down to a 17% increase. Oh, if we changed a couple things here, now we got it down to a 14% increase. You good with that? I'm good with that. Does that meet the budget? Yeah, that meets the budget. Okay, great. That's the extent of open enrollment. That is the extent of renewal. And brother, I've seen that way too many times. And the problem with that modeling is that if I got 14% this year and I get another 12 or 14% next year, and I get another one the following year, compounded, it's something that you cannot ever satisfy. You would not be able to keep healthcare. So when we hear business owners, when we hear corporations complain about healthcare continues to rise, well, it does, but there's a way to contain it. The difference is that because we've never asked the questions, even when I talk on the individual side, you know, for a side note, even when I talk to folks about, well, did you ask your doctor that? No, because we've been trained that our doctor is the end all be all, and we shouldn't ask him or her any questions. And I'm like, that's crazy. I ask my doctor plenty of questions. I'm not going to sit in your office for an hour to only get a 5-minute meeting. That doesn't make sense to me, right? You're going to give me more than that, right?
That's right.
And so it's the same thing with an employer. I'm not going to talk to you about strategic planning and come in for 5 or 10 minutes and spreadsheet out and say, here's the deal, because it's picking the best of the worst, right? At that point, if I got a 14% increase or a 20% increase here, I'm looking at which carrier gave me a 3%. Okay, well, let's switch. And so now we got employees switching from carrier to carrier to carrier to carrier. And at some point, you come to the end of the road that there are no more carriers to shop with. And now you just start taking that increase year over year. And so we're trying to demystify that, man, and to say to folks that, you know what, proper planning and looking at this thing from a unit cost and finding out in your contracts, what are you paying for? Are you in the best network? It requires some work, and most people aren't willing to do the work, including the large brokerage firms, which is why they keep most people fully insured, brother. And so those differentials to me make up the difference of employee benefit planning and what we're looking at versus just coming in and spreadsheeting and saying, hey, here's what it is. Pick from this. Great deal. I'll see you next year. Or I'll see you on the golf course. And that's how business is still being done now. It's very archaic.
That's it. That's it. You know, that's a great summary. Like when I think of employee benefits, I think of Voltron. You know,
holding the pieces together. Everybody comes
all
together.
The pieces. Like one lion doesn't make it.
No.
One lion doesn't make it.
No. Not
you
at all.
gotta have each component, and each component has to fit and serve its purpose properly.
Yes.
Because you can't shortcut any of those components either.
No, you can't shortcut. And I bring this up because we're talking about why get into the insurance business. The one thing that I would share that I'd be remiss if I didn't say, Rod, is that the thing where I see specifically African Americans and other marginalized communities come into our space and where they go wrong is that you started this segment by saying that there's so many different things that we can do. And so when you get that insurance license, it gives you the power to sell 3,000 different, I always call them on-ramps, right? You know, you got 3,000 different on-ramps, man. And once you're in the space, every day you're getting an email marketing to you from a different on-ramp. And so what ends up happening with us is unlike the Voltron method that we just talked about, where maybe there's 4 or 5 things. And I always talk about it with my guys in terms of being a wheel with spokes, right? The center of our spoke is what we do. That center core is what we do. But every offshoot that we look at, we had to get the center core right first to then begin to deal with all the other offshoots. And what I watch people do when they come into our business, and why a lot of them don't stay in the business, is that they join what I call the idea of the month club, where simply some new idea came in. Now they're selling long-term care. Oh, now I'm going to sell Medicare. Or now I'm going to do IUL. Or now I'm going to do annuities. Or now I'm going to do car insurance. And they never get a space. And so what happens with most of the folks that are in our industries that look like you and I is that they're the jack of all trades, master of none. And what I always prefer to compare it to is that when we think about a physician, when I think about an internal medicine doctor, he or she is the jack of all trades. When I think about a heart surgeon, he or she is a specialist. And when we look at from a revenue standpoint, who generates the most revenue? Well, it's always the specialist. The specialist is the person that I call on. You're the subject matter expert. Yeah, do I know a lot about everything? But if I can be in the center, I can be the center lion or whatever that is. And I got other people that I can call on to do those other things. I don't need to get caught up in what is going on in IULs. I don't need to get caught up in what's going on in car insurance at home. That's not my lane, but I can hook up with another lion like Rod. And now I can make that my lane without doing it. And so I just encourage folks to find something that they do and make it the goose that lays the golden egg. And so once I had something in that space that created recurring revenue and I can begin to look at everything, then I can start saying, oh, well, maybe it does make sense to dovetail this onto what we're already doing. And how do I continue to solidify my business and keep other people out of it? Well, I partner with other folks. So I'm not in 401k, but I've got some folks with 401k. I'm not in payroll. because these are all very important components of what we do from employee benefit planning. Right. And so sticking to something that makes sense for you, specifically if you're fresh into the business, and even if you've been in the business a long time. I know people been in this business floundering around for 20 years, man. Yeah. But I've got 12 different business cards from them from all these different things that they've tried. And none of it is going to work instantaneously. You got to work it. Are they making money in all of them? Yeah. People making money in all of them, bro. In every insurance company, even insurance companies you and I not familiar with. Hell, there's 1,800 different insurance companies out there. Man, they all ain't in business doing nothing. They selling something, bro. Somebody's selling something that they got, and there's a top of the table person in that deal. So I just would encourage folks to make sure that you find something specific. And so we are specifically in the space that we're talking about, and we don't deviate from that.
That's a jewel, man. I love that guidance and that advice.